Have you ever used a simple Tuile biscuit to add that vital finishing touch and make your desserts look wow? These simple little biscuits are so easy to make, and there are endless designs you can create. At the end of this video, I've also got a tip for serving ice cream on a plated dessert so that you don't have this problem. In a previous video, I showed you how you can make designs by spreading the paste, but in today's video, I'm going to show you some great designs you can make by piping the paste. We only need 4 simple ingredients to make a Tuile paste. We've got equal quantities of flour, icing sugar and butter, 30 grams or 1 ounce of each, and we've got an egg for the egg white. The first thing we need to do is melt the butter. It needs to be completely melted with no unmelted lumps in it. Then we need to separate the egg. If you need some ideas for using the egg yolk, why don't you try our foolproof hollandaise sauce? It's so good on steamed vegetables. Then add in the remaining ingredients. I add the butter last because it's warm and we don't want it to start cooking the egg white. When we do add it, we need to whisk it all straight away until it's completely combined and there are no lumps. That's all there is to making this simple paste, but I can't wait to show you what you can do with it. It's a bit runny to use straight away, so pop it in the fridge for an hour or so to firm up a little. It needs to be a spreadable consistency, or in today's case, a pipeable consistency. This has had about an hour. Let's see if it's ready. See how it's slowly falling off the palette knife? That's exactly what we're looking for. Now we need to make a piping bag. You can use a plastic piping bag or a reusable one, but it's just as easy to make one out of baking paper. Tear off a square of baking paper, then fold it in half diagonally and cut through to get 2 separate triangular pieces. Make sure you have the right angle part pointing to you and wrap the side around, bringing the point back to you. Then wrap the other side around, bringing that point back to you too. You'll end up with all the corners of the original triangle pointing back at you. Now to close off the tip, pull gently on the outer piece of baking paper until the hole is firmly closed. If you don't get this closed, when you add your paste, it will run straight out of the bag. Then fold over the end pieces once and twice to firmly secure it in place. And that's how easy it is to make a paper piping bag. Now we can fill the piping bag with our Tuile paste. Be careful not to overfill it. If it's too full, the paste will ooze out everywhere and make a big mess. When it's filled, fold in the edges and then fold over the top a couple of times to close it. With that, we're ready to pipe our first designs. I find it's best to use a flat baking tray and a silicone mat for these. Today I'm going to show you how to make 3 different types of pipe designs. The first one is freehand piping. It's a bit like piping with chocolate. You need to make sure you have several contact points so the design has some stability. Remember, these designs are delicate, so make a few more than you think you'll need in case you break some while you're handling them. Notice how I'm holding the piping bag. My thumb is pushing out the paste and my fingers are guiding the bag. If you squeeze too low on the bag, you'll run out of paste near the tip, which makes piping very difficult. You also want to make sure the lines on your designs aren't too close together, because as they bake, they'll spread a little and might touch. I'll show you this soon. Pop these into a hot oven. I've got mine set on fan bake 180 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit. They don't take long to cook and seem to suddenly be done, so keep a close eye on them. These took about 6 minutes. See the slight discoloration here? That's just where the paste was a bit thicker and maybe my oven has a few hot spots. Isn't that leaf so simple and delicate? It's perfect for enhancing a dessert. Look at the difference it's made to this simple sago pudding. Tuiles can be made ahead of time, which is a lifesaver when you're making a plated meal. You can store them in an airtight container until you're ready to use them. Here you can see how some of these delicate lines have joined together near the bottom. If they were too close all over, you could end up with a big tuile blob, which is probably not the look you're going for. Let's make our second type of pipe tuile, this time using paper templates. I'm going to use a fresh tray. The previous one is still hot, so the paste would start cooking if I didn't let it cool down first. It's worth remembering this if you're making a few batches. Using a template or stencil is a great way to get consistent designs. Here's a couple I've drawn to demonstrate with. All you need to do is pop the template under your silicone mat or baking paper and then trace over it. These are going to be wing shapes, so I have both the left and right sides. As always, with the delicate nature of these tuiles, I'm making a spare set. I love the possibilities with this paste. You can spread it like I have in some past videos, or pipe it like this. The shapes and styles you can make are so versatile, just as versatile as using chocolate. These are ready for the oven. When tuiles come out of the oven, they're still pliable but not for long. They crisp up and harden very quickly. If they don't, you probably haven't cooked them for long enough. I'm going to add a little bend on the tip of these wings by resting them on this piece of wooden dowel. Can you see the subtle bend? It adds a lovely depth to this design. It's a simple little tweak, but it does look a bit more sophisticated. Next time you're making tuiles, why don't you have a play around and try to bend your designs? You might be surprised by what you come up with. Another way you can pipe tuile paste is by combining colours. We can make some of our paste chocolate coloured by adding a little bit of cocoa powder. This is one way to avoid the mottled look on the lighter coloured tuiles, but it's also perfect for adding contrasting details. When using a combination of white and chocolate paste, it gives so many possibilities for eye-catching designs. I'm going to make a simple twisted tuile using the two colours. By the way, these silicone mats are a kitchen must-have. It's so much easier to pipe onto these than baking paper that slips and slides. And of course, these are reusable. I have several of them for baking cookies and making things like homemade savoury crackers. I definitely wouldn't be without them. If you're keen to get the same ones, there's a link in the description below. Remember, when you're making tuiles that you plan to shape, don't make too many at once. Since they set hard quickly, you need to leave enough time to shape them before they harden. I usually make 2 or 3 at a time depending on how much shaping they'll need. Here they are, ready to shape. They're hot, so be careful. My family are always teasing me about having chef hands and not feeling the heat. I've got this little piece of wooden dowel to wrap this around, but anything clean will work. How cool are these little double-coloured spirals? This one is still slightly soft, but it'll fully harden soon. So we've got our pipe tuile selection all made, but we're not going to leave it here. Let's see how we can use these to up our dessert plating game. I've made a chocolate brownie half covered with boysenberries to showcase a range of plating ideas. I've also got some creme fraiche and a gorgeous red mixed berry puree. For garnishing, I've got some mint tips and rosemary flowers. Let's cut the brownie. If you want the recipe for this, head on over to my website, easypeasy.co. You can also subscribe to my newsletter and receive weekly tips and ideas from my kitchen directly to your inbox. When I'm cutting something gooey like this brownie, I find it's best to give my knife a quick rinse under some warm running water before I start cutting. You don't want it all wet though, so give it a quick dry on some paper towel. Notice how I'm cleaning my knife between cuts too. When you've made a delicious dessert and want to serve it nicely, cutting it cleanly is a great starting point. We don't want all the residue sticking to the top of the next slice. The way you cut the brownie can also create different plating possibilities. I've cut a narrow rectangular piece for our first plate. Let's get the other components ready. I'm going to put the crème fraîche into a piping bag. I love piping it on as it looks clean and tidy. You could use mascarpone, whipped cream, or even a cream cheese if you wanted to. I like the slightly sour hint in the crème fraîche when paired with the rich chocolate brownie. Let's put the puree into a squeezy bottle ready to use. This is basically a berry compote, but instead of using it chunky or straining it to create a coulis, I've blitzed it into a puree. I like the rustic look with the seeds still in there, but you can squash it through a sieve to get it super smooth if you prefer. Make sure your bottle has a good sized hole so the puree doesn't block the nozzle. Let's see what we can do to elevate our dessert presentation with our accompaniments, and ultimately if the piped tuile is worth our efforts. Remember, odd numbers of things are more pleasing to the eye, and I don't think we'll comfortably fit 5 blobs of cream on here, so 3 will have to do. It's fun playing around and there are so many ways you can do this. I'm trying 3 smaller dots of berry puree on the opposite corners this time. So far, so good. I think we should add the leaves we made with the template to this dessert. Sticking with our odd number theme, we'll add 3. 1 on each side of the dessert to create balance, and 1 in the centre to give us some height. Of course, we also need the garnishes. They add the much needed colour and finish off this plated dessert. What do you think? You can also use a chocolate coloured leaf here for a different look. On to our second dessert idea. Let's use a circle cutter to cut a circular shape of brownie this time. Using cutters can create some interesting shapes. Try not to choose something very detailed though. It can be tricky for a gooey brownie to come out without breaking if it has intricate details. Let's plate it up. Another way to add the puree is to put a blob on the plate and then carefully drag a spoon through it to create an interesting effect. I'm following the contour of the plate and keeping with the circular plate and brownie. Then I'm going to add some cream. It will act as a soft base to stick the tuile into. Look at the lovely height these wing-shaped tuiles create. Make sure you add these just before serving your dessert, as the tuiles will start to soften once they're stuck in the cream. I'm going to add a separate dot of cream for the garnishes. I think they'll look better off to the side. And voila! Another plated dessert option enhanced with a simple piped tuile biscuit. For our third plating idea, we can cut a triangular shape. This can either be plated flat or try standing it upright. It'll look completely different. A brownie is solid enough to hold its shape plated upright. Sometimes plating is all about trying different things. Think about how the dessert can be plated to create height. Try plating using symmetry, or go for an abstract design. Then add a finishing touch that brings it all together and adds to the visual appeal. I love this different design. What do you think? For our last plating idea, let's cut a typical square piece and see if we can take it up a notch. I prefer to cut the outer edges off as they can be a bit dry. It's the gooey part of the brownie that's super special. This time I'm going to add the puree in a couple of lines diagonally across the plate. This is where our squeezy bottle really comes in handy. It would be almost impossible to do this without one. To add the tuile, we can keep the lines going in the same direction, or we can go the opposite way. Actually, I think that looks good. A simple square-shaped brownie enhanced so easily by a delicate tuile to add some sophistication. With the finishing touches, I'm sure this will go down a treat. Isn't it amazing how with the same dessert and the same garnishes and the same tuile paste, we can come up with all of these different designs? Each one is unique and appealing in its own way. You really are only limited by your imagination. Here's an extra tip. Say you wanted to add a scoop of ice cream to this dessert. By the time you get it to the table, it's done this nice little dance all over the plate and ruined your careful presentation. So I'm going to show you a sneaky little trick to solve this problem. You can either put a little dollop of cream on the plate and sit the ice cream ball on top. Or since we're making tuiles, if you have some extra tuile paste, pipe some little circular discs. They don't have to be very big, and you can bake a whole lot of these to keep for later use. When these come out of the oven, they look like this, and they're a great little disc to sit the ice cream on. Isn't that a lifesaver? That's not going anywhere. I hope you have fun piping tuiles and serving beautiful desserts with ice cream that'll stay put. Here's another video you might enjoy. See you over there.